Hi, and welcome back to Continual Fandom. Tonight it is time to maybe beam up, beam down, beam all the way around. We're going to be talking about some of our favorite or morally gray characters from the Star Trek universe. So I'm your host, Jim Nettles, and before we get started, let's talk about and have all of these morally gray characters introduce themselves as well. So, Wendy, you're up first.
Hi, everybody. My name is Wendy Van Camp. I am the poet laureate of the city of Anaheim, California, of all things. I'm a speculative poet. I'm an author, an illustrator, and I edit a heck of a lot of poetry anthologies. Why am I here? I love Star Trek. I started watching it on my dad's knee as a 2 or 3 year old, and I have been watching it ever since. Love the new stuff, love the old stuff. I'm happy to be here to talk about rogues. So it'll be a fun hour for us.
Rachel?
Hi, I am the one, the only, the R.E. Carr. I am an author of urban fantasy, horror comedy, and science fiction, and I am a massive Trekkie. Recently being on several panels and getting to meet the writer of The Trouble with Tribbles, and totally unable to speak in awe in that moment. But I'm just happy to be here. They always drag me out for Star Trek. Expect the insanity.
Jenny?
Hi, I'm Gini Koch. I write the Alien Catherine Kitty Cat series for Daw Books. I also write under a variety of other pen names and in all lengths of genres. And my grandmother was the original Trekker. I saw every Star Trek ever. She loved it, Beyond Life, all of it. Any part of Star Trek she could get. My husband was also the same, so I had to like it or drown. My particular favorite of Star Trek are the rogues. So I'm glad to be here.
Kristin?
Hi, my name is Kristin Jackson. I'm a graphic designer and I've been working in the film industry for the past 13 years now. And as a Trekkie person, I guess I started, my Trek is the original Star Trek. And so that's kind of where I came into the entire world of science fiction was first through Star Trek. So I love the rogue characters. Anybody who's ever heard me at Dragon Con knows I love the dark guys, the villains, the shades of gray people. So this is a great topic for me.
David?
I'm David R. Slayton. I'm the author of the Adam Binder urban fantasy series. It starts with White Trash Warlock and the epic fantasy series Gods of Night and Day that starts with Dark Moon Shallow Sea. And I grew up in my trailer in Oklahoma in the woods watching Star Trek every night thinking, wow, there could be a better future out there that is all just mud and sticks. So I love, like Wendy, I love all Trek, old and new. I don't think there's any Trek I haven't thoroughly enjoyed.
So I'm going to start with a hard question here because much like we started before we got through was how are we defining our rogues? And I think this is one of those fun questions because especially in the Star Trek universe, it's designed to be kind of that hopeful. A lot of the time our antagonists are tragic characters or they're much more predatory. They are, there's a lot of things here, but we all kind of like the rogues because they're in that sort of gray space, that liminal space within Star Trek. So, Wendy, how do you actually define the rogues of the Star Trek universe?
Well, I don't really feel a rogue is necessarily a villain, although they can be villainous. I view them more as Yankee traders, more people that are just kind of out for their own self-interest. And if someone else gets in the way, well, that's how it is. But I don't view them as necessarily evil people or anything like that. They're kind of in that gray area. But I think as characters, that makes them a lot more interesting.
Rachel?
Well, I grew up as a comic nerd, so when I think Rogues Gallery, I'm thinking of the villains, but I'm thinking of the fun ones. So, yes, there are certainly rogues that are much more on the anti-hero, but there's some that I think are anti-villains, which fortunately Star Trek has like a prime example, which I won't spoil because I'm sure you're going to ask who our favorite rogue is in the upcoming question. But to me, it is a spectrum. So there's there's the good rogues, the bad rogues, and the rogues you want to punch out an airlock.
Jenny?
I'm with what Rachel and Wendy said. It's got to be, these are the people that they're the neutral. They're chaotic neutral. They're lawful neutral, or they're or chaotic good, but they're chaotic. They're way more. They're not following the rules the way the rules are laid out. They're not lawful in any way, and they are going to do what they want to do when they want to do it for their reasons. And if their reasons combine with your reasons and they can be helpful, yay. And if their reasons do not combine with your reasons and they can beat you, also yay. So I really like a good rogue. I like those great characters because they're more fun. They're much more unpredictable, which makes them interesting to watch.
Kristin?
Yeah, for me, it's the charming and entertaining rule breakers. I like that chaotic good, chaotic neutral type of category. So you can have fun watching them just tie all the rest of the characters up in knots as they try to deal with the chaos and the just not doing things the way they should have done or were supposed to do, or they're getting in trouble. And you just kind of enjoy watching them, because they mess with everybody.
David?
I think I agree with all of that. I think one of the thing about Star Trek rogues that makes them so interesting and compelling is they're playful. They tend to be a little more on the playful side. As other people have said, they can be villainous, they can be dangerous, but I'm thinking of the examples I really like are the ones who are a little more playful in their roguish behavior.
Well, I'm going to start with, because I can, one of my personal favorites. And, for this is not going to shock anybody that really knows me, but, Roger Carmel's Harcourt Fenton Mudd is still one of my favorite characters of all time. Depending on which episode depending on everything else, everything was a bit morally gray. Everything tended to be a little bit of, you could understand his reasoning. And, what does it matter if there's a little profit on the side or a few billion extra tribbles? But looking at Harry Mudd, the reason I always liked it, because again, he was in multiple episodes, he was in the animated series, everything else. I think part of that was you got to see a little bit of that 1960s humanity still brought up into the Star Trek universe. And I think that was always one of my favorite things. So, Rachel, who is your favorite?
My favorite rogues gallery in all of Star Trek? Well, I like Mudd, I like Q, but if I have to pick one, and I had to because you just told me in a question, it has to be from Deep Space Nine. I am a massive Elim Garak stan. I mean, he is probably Dr. Bashir's one true love. He is just a simple tailor who knows how to do everything. He's an amazing actor who brought his own claustrophobia into his performance. And he's just, whenever you really needed something done and you didn't want to ask too many questions, you always had Garak. And he has the greatest lines, arguably, in all of Deep Space Nine. I mean, it's all true, especially the lies. And he is the star of my favorite episode of Deep Space Nine, In the Pale Moonlight, along with Avery Brooks. And it's just, Andrew Robinson brings so much to that character. And he is equal parts absolutely terrifying and completely disarming, charming, and lovable. And he just fills the whole spectrum. So because of that, he is my all-time favorite Star Trek rogue.
And one that I always thought deserved his own series. I still want his backstory.
His book is fabulous, and Andrew Robinson actually wrote it. So it's
Yep.
beta canon, but it is good.
Yep. So, Jenny.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say my favorite rogue is Captain Kirk. Kirk's a rogue as far as I'm concerned. Okay. Especially as I just want to be a record. I loved the J.J. Abrams movies, loved them, and I thought Chris Pine was fabulous, and especially as Chris Pine played him. I see Kirk as a rogue. I see Kirk as a rogue who knows how to work properly, but I think he's like the king of the rogues out there. He is the one that he doesn't follow the rules if he thinks the rules are stupid, right? He doesn't do what he's supposed to do because he's always got a twinkle. He's always going to do something. He's going to charm you. He's going to hit you if he has to. But to me, Kirk is the ultimate rogue. And I think it's funny that it's like he never gets listed. But to me, that's the rogue. Star Trek is built around a rogue who does the right thing. He would be chaotic good, right? Because if he thinks the directive is stupid, he just pretends he didn't hear it.
And how many times has he stolen a ship?
Yes. Okay. I mean, every time he turns around, he's stealing his own ship. He's stealing another ship. He's doing this. He's doing that. To me, he is the quintessential rogue. And so that would make him my favorite.
But it is his ship, sort of.
Sometimes it's really Starfleet's ship.
Well, true.
It's his ship.
And occasionally a Klingon vessel, but
When Starfleet says you're not supposed to be driving it today, and he takes it, that is breaking the rules. And Kirk does everything because, as we've seen throughout the entire Star Trek universe, he knows better than the higher ups. But it's a rogue attitude, very much a rogue attitude. So he's my favorite.
Kristin?
Yeah, I agree with Ginny. She took my character. I've always thought that Kirk is absolutely the rogue for the entire series, the quintessential boyish charm and rule breaking, but always knowing exactly when, where the limits are for things. He's a stand-up guy until you tell him that, no, this is, going to kill millions of people. And then he comes around and he'll find a way to get around it. And the Kabashi Maru, that's a classic like rogue play right there. Mm-hmm. This system is designed so we fail all the time, and it's kind of a test to show how you deal with failure. And so he goes and finds a way to just change the entire software so that it makes it so we can win. He is the greatest sort of embodiment of a rogue person. And so, I am absolutely in agreement with that. That was my number one pick.
David?
I gotta go with Bosch. I think she's such a great counter to Picard, right? The fact that her kind of greed and her own archaeological interests when she joins up with Q in Deep Space Nine. I love that Jean-Luc has this feminine foil in this romantic love interest who's a little bit of a trickster and not your shirking Violet type. So I've always loved her. She's kind of always been my favorite. And apparently my cat agrees. So
Wendy?
There's a lot to choose from. I love the choices that others have already said. Thank you for taking them from me. No, I'm kidding. I think I'm going to go with newer Trek. I actually like Jean-Luc Picard's son in Picard 3. If ever there was a rogue, that's him. And now his first name is escaping me. I hope you guys. Thank you, Jack. Yeah. And where he got that British accent, we'll never know.
He studied in London.
Yes, I remember that line. I just think it's hilarious, though. But really, he has the charming accent, and yet he's going around stealing medical supplies with his mom to help people. And he has some other things going on in the plot, which we won't go into because maybe people haven't seen Picard 3 yet. And I highly recommend you check it out if you haven't. But yeah, he's just, he's really the embodiment of, I think, what we look for in Trek, that free spirit who still follows the rules, who gets the job done, but maybe has their own way of doing things. And in essence, I think that is what a rogue is. So I'll go for Jack.
So I want to dive into one particular subset of rogues, and you may challenge me on this definition maybe a little bit. And I'm going to be kind of loose on the definition, and I want to talk about the Q as rogues. And this can even stretch into some of our God episodes out of original series, things like this, that I think one could argue a lot of the time we could say that they probably were, at least in some of those cases, members of the Q continuum. Because we get to see enough of the Q. I mean, obviously John Delancey is a force of nature. But even beyond him, looking beyond Delancey's Q, we see a number of other Q that all have a bit of that combination of all seeing, all knowing, all powerful, and yet still have these other natures. So, Jenny, where do you kind of land on the Q in terms of roguish characters? And is there a particular version of Q that speaks to you more?
I love the Q. I think they're awesome. I think they're fun. I think they embody they embody rogueness, they embody chaos. They have a reason for why they're doing it, and some of it is playing because they're so powerful. But they're also, you get a chance to win. And I mean, I think John Delancey as the face of our main face of Q is great. I know Trelane from original series had all those powers, and I think they've retconned it so that no, he's a Q before they come out as Q, right? Before Delancey shares with Picard what happens, Kirk's already had to deal with Trelane. And I also I don't know if he came in more than once, but I really liked when Corbin Burnson came in as a Q, and he and Delancey are both like cackling together. In the one, that's a scene I remember. They're just like it was just hilarious, and it was so well done because supposedly he's coming in. Corbin Burnson's Q is coming in to like rein in Delancey's Q, but he doesn't really. It's just like, oh wow, you're having so much fun. I want to have fun too. Let's just really make it hard for them. So those are my three that I would say if I would have to put, say in order, it would be Delancey and then Trelane and then Corbin Burnson's version of Q.
Kristin?
Yeah, for me, I like the original Q from Next Generation. I think he's a very roguish character because he tends to want to just keep poking away and just annoying the heck out of Picard. He does it for fun. He's clearly got, just a wise guy attitude in a lot of respects. And I also agree, Trelane from the original series had that sort of boyish charm. He was super powerful. He was doing terrible things, but he had like an innocence about him that he wasn't actually meaning harm. He was just really doing a lot of terrible things because he thought it was fun.
David?
I don't know if I would agree that the Q is a rogue, right? I definitely considered him for the list as I was thinking about preparing for this panel, and definitely a chaotic god and a chaotic force of nature. And again, thinking of that episode of Deep Space Nine where Bosch and Q show up together and they are fighting, right? Their partnership has come to an end. I don't know. I don't know if I see the Q as as a rogue so much as I see them as there is a purpose. There is more of and maybe part of it for me is that a rogue has to live on the edge, and they are outside of the rules and therefore the protection of Starfleet. And with having such an enormous amount of power, the Q are essentially untouchable. So yeah, it's an interesting question. But I don't think I can consider the Q to be rogues. Certainly they have roguelike traits and certainly have roguelike qualities. And they are chaos monkeys on a divine level. But yeah, I don't know. I think for me, a rogue needs to be a little bit more on the edge of safety, and the Q are not in that place.
Wendy?
Yeah, I think of Q as kind of a rogue. And by the way, those old scientists, they had a Tremaine thing going on. I had to throw that in. But yeah, it's funny when we first see Q in the Next Generation, he is basically a villain. We don't know what he's up to, and he's plaguing Picard, like on a Odysseus level. And but as time goes on and we see him over and over in the various series, and then going on into the Picard series, you get a sense that there's actually been a plan going on, and a plan that maybe isn't negative toward humanity itself. Maybe the Q saw something in humanity, and Picard was a pivotal moment in time that they could manipulate. And that is the reason why the Q are there. And in a sense, even though they do so many strange things, sometimes we don't know what they're doing, but in the end, it's almost benevolent, helping humanity grow. And so I don't know, in a way, I kind of do view Q as a rogue, but not a human rogue. He's a Q rogue. It's like he's coming outside his own society and acting up, and he's doing things with humanity that maybe the other Qs don't know about or don't care about, but he sees something in us. And that's why he is a rogue, because he's acting outside his own culture. So yeah, Jim, I think I'd call him a rogue, definitely.
Rachel?
See, I go a step further, and it's from a very specific episode of Voyager with the Q who wants to die. And he's the roguish Q because he's defying his whole society and doesn't want to keep living in boredom. And I am blanking on the episode name because I totally forgot to write it down, but I had it prepared. But yeah, I think most of the Qs kind of fall more in the trickster god, the teaching god archetype. But that particular one, he's basically there to shake up their whole order and doesn't care who he screws because he wants to do it his way, and he's sick of a never-ending existence and he wants to change. So that would be my roguish Q.
So looking at one of my favorite episodes from Next Gen, and it's one of the ones that I know either hits people's favorite list or they hate it, and it is Devil's Due with Ardra, right? Where you have somebody who is basically scamming an entire planet, making him think she's the devil there to collect on the planet. And as it goes through, we have the whole Faustian trial, everything else. But it really comes down to being, as she starts flipping through and being the devil from all of these different cultures and everything else with pulling the big scam, she's still one of my favorite kind of roguish characters, in that notion of she really does. We don't see any real major malevolent intent other than the fact that she was being the cultural devil, right? So there's a lot there to that, and that notion of the Faustian deal and when the devil gets caught. And I mean, that's often a lot of the fun that comes about in Star Trek. So Kristin, for you, what are one of the fun rogues that you look at, somebody that speaks to you, something that calls to you, just sort of in the in general, how that plays out?
Oh, gosh, I don't know. How about I've got listed, Quark for me is kind of a fun roguish character. He's sort of a charming, eccentric, trying to always, he operates by his own rules for sure. I mean, he's got a set of rules and codes that he follows, but he's always trying to get an advantage and manipulate and challenge and just kind of mess around with everyone else. So that's kind of a character that I love to see.
David?
Discovery's take on Harry Mudd, particularly in the time warp episode in season 1, where Harry has acquired a little bit of a time crystal, so he's able to torture the crew, and he keeps rebooting things. He kills Lorca like 18,000 different ways. Again, a little bit more malevolent, but I really thought the way that they utilized him in that, he's definitely a bit devious, right? The way that he sneaks onto the ship, concealing himself inside a space whale, which he knows Starfleet is obligated to protect as an endangered species. So it's interesting. You make me think of Audra and the Double Do. There's definitely deeper themes that Roddenberry wanted to play with a lot, and you see that in classic Trek and the original series so much of godlike beings like Tremaine or Apollo. That he had such a interest in exploring that idea of somebody who has so much more power and the boredom of the immortal, or the interface between somebody who has all that power and humanity. But I have to say, among a lot of them, I think I liked that take on Mudd, and I'm hoping that we see that take on Mudd come back in Strange New Worlds. He's been gone for a few years now, and it'd be nice to see that character revisited.
Wendy?
I think I'd like to explore Cyrano Jones from The Trouble with Tribbles. He's similar to Harry Mudd, but I think he has a little more morality to him. And because we didn't see him, I think he really is only in that one episode. We don't see him as much as Harry Mudd. But there was a certain charm to him. He was just there trying to make a living. And I love the bar scene when he walks through the whole bar with his drink in his hand. Nobody bothers him to the very end. And the barkeep takes it right out of his hand, goes, basically, you got to pay for this kind of
That
thing.
would be the story of my life, but
Yes. So I think he is definitely a rogue. He has the charm. He's certainly out for his own self-interest. But I really just enjoyed his character. He was a good foil for Kirk and the gang. But he wasn't a dangerous rogue. He was just there basically to make a living as a trader, and he just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time, and he just didn't care what triples might do to a space station full of grain.
or Kaylee.
Mhm.
Mrs. Carr.
Oh, I got to go back to my danger rogue. Since I've already used Garrick, I'm going into new Trek, and one of my favorite rogues of recent was Captain Angel from Strange New Worlds, who,
I
of
had a
course,
feeling you might go there.
oh yeah, Jesse James Keitel, I love you so much. But no, it's a beautiful story because in the end, this is a person who lies and cheats and impersonates a Starfleet counselor and totally pulls it off, like completely gets into everyone's head, gets everyone to trust them, and then boom, turns out, oh God, you think they're a pirate, right? But no, it's not just that they're a pirate, it's that they had a lover and they wanted to rescue them. So they do this whole amazing pirate scheme for love and have just amazing lines like, love is the only thing that makes this cold universe worthwhile. And I really want them to come back in future seasons of Strange New World because it will bring in another roguish character of Cybok. So it's a twofer of awesome character. And Cybok still takes the cake as the most wasted villain in the movie history. So I want to see some redemption there.
That whole plot line with Angel and Cybok being the lover and the whole scheme, like that thread had better get picked up.
If they don't pick it up, I think there will be a mutiny, at least from the two of us, and we can start our revolt. We'll just go down to Burbank and pick it till they listen. Or at least we'll send strongly worded letters or emails because it's 2024.
Just tweet it out. It'll be fine.
We can't tweet anymore. It's X now.
Yeah, well.
Jenny.
But yeah, that's me.
I'm sorry, I'm an old school Harry Mudd. I don't like new school Harry Mudd. He's nasty. I like old school. I don't. I like old school Harry Mudd. He's everything done with that total twinkle in the eye, everything done with in the background. He to me, when I saw the panel, he's the first name I thought of. The first character, I thought that's your quintessential rogue. And I think, I mean, you said it, Jim, we have our Harry Mudds, right? Yeah, he like defined what the guest star rogue, who wasn't Kirk, is going to, is going to be. And I really enjoyed him. And he reminded me every time of the peddler in The Wizard of Oz. He's going to take advantage, and but there might be a reason maybe not to take advantage of this person, but I'm going to take advantage of all these other people. But I'm just going to give you some really good pattern. It's going to sound great, and that's okay. So I'm still very much old school Harry Mudd. As you can't. The new guy, yeah, okay. He's not my Harry.
You got to shout and get off my lawn after that, just by the way.
It's okay. I'm with you, David. I like the new Harry Mudd too.
One of the things I always love about Trek fandom that I always say is there's something for everybody, a different style and taste differs, and I, totally get it. So it's not I don't take any. I really love that there's new Trek, old Trek, that there's so much for everyone, and it's really important to me that
we're on a panel. We're supposed to argue, David. Stop being so nice.
No, you're allowed to love new Harry. I just love old Harry. I don't like new Harry.
I'll always be mad at new Harry for what he did to Ash in jail. So I'm with you on that one.
Yeah, that is true.
Well, wasn't the original Harry Mudd sort of more written as a comedic character too?
Yeah.
Whereas the new version was a more serious take on that.
Everything in Discovery was a more serious take. I think that's a fair assessment of the series.
Yeah.
So looking at kind of in this particular case, I think is kind of an unexpected roguish character to me, which was kind of a surprise from New Decks, right? Or from Lower Decks, from New Decks. From Lower Decks, there we go. And that was from this season, that's Tendi, because she has to go and live up to her, roots as an Orion pirate and a member of the royal houses of the Orion pirates. So we see the geeky scientist having to come out and be a bit more roguish as we go through. And watching those parts of the story, I thought was a lot of fun seeing her in that kind of conflict. So, David, kind of looking at some of the newer series and characters. I mean, Lower Decks alone has a lot of roguish characters. If we look at Voyager, it had, with the Maquis, you had a lot of that kind of energy to it. So, but is there somebody within Starfleet other than Kirk himself that really exemplifies a lot of that roguish spirit, that roguish energy, and plays with that speaks to you? Yes, Ms. Carr, just settle down.
Within Starfleet's a hard answer, right? Because to me, not necessarily. I think Ro Lauren would probably be your best get, right? Because she goes against the rules a lot, but lives to her principles. It's interesting you bring up Lower Decks because both Lower Decks and Prodigy picked up on Akona from Next Generation. Again, not a Starfleet character, but it's nice to see Prodigy and Lower Decks continuing these kind of threads. I think Mariner, like if you're going to have to talk about somebody inside Star Trek who is just, again, a rogue, but is going to get it done, it's Mariner. She is absolutely never going to get promoted. Well, now she has, and that's a whole other source of drama for her. But she's probably the most Kirk-like in so many ways. If only from the whole himbo perspective. Mariner gets pretty busy. I think she's probably the most roguish Starfleet officer that we've encountered yet, just because she doesn't follow the rules. She doesn't wear her uniform properly. I mean, just everything she does is often an act of rebellion, but at her core, she loves Starfleet so much, and she loves the Federation and its principles so much, but she really does not like following the rules.
Wendy?
Yeah, I love Mariner too. She's just awesome. And I do like Tendi too. I mean, yeah, she's an Orion pirate from her background and all that, but I love the fact that when we first meet her in the series, she's this very meek, demure kind of rule follower. And as we learn more about her history, this behavior is actually very much a breakout and a rebellion against her childhood. She wants to be a good person, but she comes from this pirate background and all the fighting, all the whatever. She's fully capable of doing all these things. It's just she chooses not to do them. She wants to be a good person. She wants to do science. That's her passion and her love. And so she rebels against her culture, joins Starfleet, and nobody realizes her background until they finally get to know her. And I think the reveals on Tendi have just been delicious. I just absolutely love it. In fact, Lower Decks is really growing on me as a series. I love the crossover they did with Strange New Worlds. I thought that was just awesome. And but I'm really enjoying the cartoon because it's not a child's cartoon. It's for everybody. And I just love the directions that they've been going. It's been a breath of fresh air. It's a completely different take, a different feel to Star Trek. And honestly, I think a little more humor in Star Trek goes a long way. So yeah, it's been fun. So yeah, definitely Mariner is a great rogue. And Tendi is a rogue from her own culture, even though for us in the human culture, or whatever, we may not think of her that way at first. But yeah, she's a
Which
rebellious
again,
girl.
which again makes me wonder about Starfleet's background check process. But
You'd think they'd catch that, huh?
Rachel,
Oh, see, that had to be third because that I love Mariner and I love Tendi and I wanted to. But wait, there's more. If you can't tell by my shirt, I am a massive Lower Deck stan. So I will bring up the third potential rogue in the Lower Decks cast, and that is the new one, Tallinn, who is
Ah,
our Vulcan rogue. Not just like the Vulcan rogue that was in Picard, which was hilarious, a Vulcan crime boss, still, chef's kiss. But if you remember in Wej Dush, when she was first introduced, she was overly emotional. She followed a hunch. She wanted to pursue a personal project to increase shield output that ended up saving the day and then thus got transferred to be humans problem. And then later, she had not aromatic syndrome, that's what Picard has. The other syndrome, the one that Sarek had, that influences emotions in others when the beta Zeds just caused all havoc in there. So, and she also has the greatest line, and I'm sorry I'm stealing it for this podcast tonight, but I'm Vulcan as fuck is without a doubt the most hardcore line in all of Star Trek, and I live for her. So I will nominate Tallinn as the Vulcan rogue of Starfleet. No half human crap, pure Vulcan, all rogue.
all right, Jenny.
I am so grateful no one has said this. Tom Paris from Voyager.
yeah.
Cap Janeway has to go jack him out of prison or something to get him onto the ship. And he stays rogue a really long time, which I like. They started softening him, and I started losing interest in Voyager the moment they started making him Nova. I was in Voyager for that character and that character alone. And as soon as he's like, "Oh, I'm falling in love, and now I'm going to be a really great guy," it's like, you can fall in love. Can't you just be you still? Doesn't she like you as you? I like you as you. So I love Tom Paris's character. Literally, that was the character I stayed with Voyager for. And like I said, as soon as they started like making him heroic, like intentionally heroic, I kind of went, I have better things to do with my time now that you're ruining my favorite. To me, he was the absolute, the guy who's following in Kirk's footsteps. And so I was all over that character. And he was totally rogue the whole time. Like I said, until they saw him. I mean, he's only doing things. He's doing it because he has to. Oh, do I have to be heroic? If you insist. I don't really want to. but okay, because we don't have a choice. Oh my God, we're stuck out here in the middle of nowhere. I'll try to be heroic. Who can I scam? There's no one to scam. I loved him. So he is one of my favorites. And I'm so grateful the rest of you all went on to the really new stuff, because I'm like, I don't have anybody else.
I thought of him, Gina, but we saved him for you.
Yep.
Thank you. I
Of
appreciate
course, it could be Nick Locarno. I mean, they look so much alike.
that.
I don't see it.
Softball laid up for you, Dave.
So, Kristin, how about for you?
Okay, so from the newer series, I'll go from new to the actual old, which is new, is Captain Pike. Strange New Worlds. He
The
was
Boy
also
Scout?
Captain Pike on the original series, but we get the new and improved Pike.
He is
And
definitely
he is
improved.
just like Kirk before Kirk was Kirk.
Mhm.
He's charming,
with
he's
good hair.
he's kind, he's adventurous, he's noble, and he will bend the rules or choose to just not see them up until the point where somebody from Starfleet sends him a message. But the whole thing about he hates the video conferencing, so he had all the stuff ripped out of the Enterprise, so he wouldn't have to talk to the holograms. He wanted to do it the old-fashioned way. So he is just a charming, carefree rules, but rules are there to follow when they're have a purpose, and then bend them a little bit or just not see them when they don't. So my vote would be for Captain Pike.
Nobody wanted to
all
throw
the way.
Riker in that mix.
Well,
Riker.
Riker was on my
I don't-
list too. I
I don't
had
think
Riker on my
Riker-
list.
I don't think of Riker as a rogue. I think of him as a ladies' man. I don't think of him as a rogue.
I think Thomas Riker is the rogue.
Yeah,
Remember his twin?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes. But
definitely.
I don't think our Riker. I've never thought of him as a rogue. I think it's interesting that Kristin does, because to me, he's just, I don't see him ever doing anything roguey. I see
Well,
him.
he started out like really Boy Scout,
Yeah.
and then he
Yeah.
just kind of grew more lax about such things as the series went on.
No.
So he
I
did
don't know,
start out as a very stand-up,
Yeah.
saluting Boy Scout type of character. But
Yeah.
then his just being around everybody else, he kind of mellowed out.
I just
over
see him,
the
I
years.
really see him as our romantic dude. He's always looking for a chick. Always. Always.
I'm pretty sure he
Um,
was looking for anything. I'm just
Yeah.
saying. I
Star
don't
Trek
think he
loves
cared.
its himbos. Let's
Yes.
not.
Yes, he does. Yes,
Ransom. That's another
he
good
was- He
himbo.
was pointedly, I remember when it debuted, and the point was pointedly made that that character was going to cover the romantic exploits of Kirk in the new thing, and that stuck. That stayed through. They were shocked that Picard was not supposed to be the sexy romantic lead at all. That just shocked the
It's
studio.
the British accent. It's irresistible, okay?
Yeah.
If you have a
But-
voice like Patrick Stewart, you can pull. It's just how
Yes,
it works.
exactly. And they didn't realize it, but they still kept Jonathan Frakes as Riker going through, and he's a tomcat. He's a tomcat looking for love. And I just don't see that as a rogue. I see that more as a tomcat looking for love. I never felt he ever did anything. Even with Minuet, he doesn't do anything that could go against Starfleet or against the good of the ship. He's never doing anything for his own personal gain. And so I think that's why I can't
I think
see-
Data does more roguish things than Riker.
Yeah, I kind of agree.
Data has hijacked the ship more often than Riker.
So let me throw another one of my favorite characters out, since we're kind of in the next gen world. And I would love to see, though I don't know anybody could, Lwaxana Troy.
Oh,
Oh,
Anybody want to take that one on?
Mhm.
but again, not a rogue. She is ultimately a traditionalist. She's a Betazoid traditionalist. She originally is going to wear clothing because she's lonely and wants a new husband, and in the end, she shows up naked because that's her tradition. She never appears without mentioning the holy rings and the clay pot with the mold in it, as Deanna calls it. I see her as too much of a traditionalist. Now she's a chaotic. So I think I'd make an argument for chaotic neutral if we're going to talk D&D alignment systems. But she's not, I don't think she's a rogue. She's a Betazoid traditionalist, but she is a traditionalist.
I agree with David.
Yeah, she totally goes in her society. It's just like one could argue that Quark he's not a rogue. For a Ferengi, he's very traditional. Rom is the Ferengi equivalent of a rogue. So you have to take the society that they're in and then determine. That's why T'Lyn would be a Vulcan rogue, but you would never look at her and go, oh my God, she's Kirk-like. But to a Vulcan, she is.
Right.
So yeah, I would say, nope, Lwaxana Troi is not a rogue. She's just chaos incarnate.
Yeah.
To a human.
All right.
Let's be
Everyone's
honest.
mother-in-law.
Oh no, I never mind. I'll be nice. So all right, who have we not talked about amongst your rogues gallery so far?
I'm out. So see, Kristin, who had the longest list, has to take this one.
Oh yeah. Okay. So I think Captain Chris Rios from Picard.
Oh yeah.
He's very roguish.
He's very nice.
He's roguish across the But there was a story in Next Generation. I wrote his name down. I can't remember the title of the episode, but it was Thadian O'Kona, who was he set up he got a gal pregnant, but it wasn't him, and it was a love interest between these other planets, and they were like two cultures going together. And so this guy was like in the middle of it all, as a smuggler, a trader,
he ends up a
artist.
DJ in Lower Decks.
He comes up in Lower Decks as a DJ, and he also comes back in Prodigy. If you haven't caught Prodigy, he has which is several years after that. So O'Kona, great, perfect example, like perfect Star Trek rogue. And again, kind of Kristin's so right. He's kind of playful, and at the same time, he comes in. He's impregnated this girl. He's stolen this gem, and then you find out that he actually was acting as the go-between for the two. There is a Romeo and Juliet situation. He was helping the couple get together, and he stole the gem as the wedding dowry, and the impregnation was from the boy from the one planet. So yeah, total awesome example of a good Star Trek rogue.
All right. Anybody else who want to go ahead? Carr.
I'm going for 7 of 9 after getting out of the Delta Quadrant, because she literally ended up as a Fenris Ranger and left Starfleet and is just in general a badass. Yes, she did come back, but she had a rogue phase, and I think we should acknowledge it.
And David Mack's book about her called Firewall is actually released today. So if you want to read something about the time when she got back from the Delta Quadrant to we see her again in Picard, that book actually came out today by David Mack.
Oh, awesome.
Nice.
Beta canon for life. But yes, that would be a good case of someone who she Tom Paris'd in a way, but she left the whole Borg collective and helped Janeway kill them. So I'm saying.
But she went against orders in Picard season 3.
She went against orders all the time in Voyager too. She took care of species, the Hirogen and species 8359 too. So
she hasn't forgotten her rebellious parents' roots and where she comes from. So.
Yeah, she was a rebellious Borg. That I think should take a cake. Borg rebel.
All right, who else have we got on the lists?
I point back to Kristin again because I'm out.
What about Gary Mitchell from the original Trek? I believe not the pilot, but the one that came after.
The next pilot.
Yeah.
Are you talking about the guy that became
God, and then
the godlike
but he was pretty roguish, I think. In a sense, whatever happened to him basically made him go completely wacko. But before that, he was kind of a self-interested kind of guy and doing that stuff. I don't think he's a rogue on the sense of some of the others we've discussed, but I think he kind of falls in that category.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna throw
Giorgio
one in.
on Discovery too.
Mhm.
I'd vote for her because
Yeah.
I mean, she is just Miss Personality, charm the socks off of people. While meantime, she's got a knife in her, behind her back,
Just
ready to
committing
stab
a
it.
few genocides on the side.
But that scene where she goes up against Starfleet when they come back in Voyager season or Discovery season 3 when they hit the future compass, Michelle Yeoh just chewed her way through those lines. It's such an amazing scene. I
There's
cannot wait for that movie.
no scenery left unscathed with Michelle Yeoh in Discovery, and I love it.
Oh, that's
So I'm
true.
gonna throw one
Michelle
out
Yeoh
there,
did
and I
well.
will be very specific. Khan from Starseed.
You just had to con it, didn't you?
Yes, I did. I had to con it.
You're
This is the
talking-
con that never ends. So
We're
therefore,
talking original series, right?
yes,
Yeah.
Ricardo Montalban, the original TV episode Starseed.
Yeah, he was a very charismatic character, which is why he was leading all those people,
And
Yeah.
seducing the ship historian.
Yeah.
Well, because he's charming and he's like Kristin said, he's charismatic. I don't see that as a rogue. That guy has a plan. That guy is not. I don't see any incarnation of Khan as a rogue. I see that as your perfect villain because we 100% believes in what he's doing, and he's doing it for the greater good of his people. And that makes him a hero, which is why he is a perfect foil all the way through, because Kirk and whoever else has to face him is also doing the right thing for their people. So I don't see Khan as a rogue at all. I see him as a villain that all of us should be basing villains on. Okay. I just don't see him as a rogue. I see him as charming and completely charismatic, and especially as played by Ricardo Montalban, incredibly sexy and handsome. So I was with the historian who was ready to go off and join him. But I never got rogue. There is no twinkle in Khan's eye. Khan is a very serious man.
True.
I went Ginny on that one completely.
One can never have too much Khan.
Yeah. Well, true, because you need a really good villain. And,
I
you know,
loved both the actors that played him. Did it
Yes.
very well.
Yeah,
And
I thought Benny Batch did a nice job in.
yes, absolutely.
I mean, he's
Oh,
kind
go
of in
ahead.
the Gul Dukat category of he is charming, he is charismatic, but I wouldn't call him a rogue because he's more of that militaristic
Mhm,
sort of dictator-like villain.
Mhm,
So he's
yeah.
in that category. Love them, but not necessarily a rogue.
So I'm gonna throw one more out there just for humor. Are any Klingons roguish to you?
Never really heard Shakespeare until you've heard it in the original Klingon.
Yes,
Yeah.
Chang. But he's still that militaristic,
Yeah,
charismatic.
he's played by
category.
Christopher Plummer, though. So for me, that was the roguiest Klingon I've seen. But that's again, he just had that insouciance that Plummer could always imbue. So for me, if I'm going to pick a Klingon, that is a rogue. He's my Klingon rogue.
I don't know. Do you think of Worf as being a rogue at all? I mean, is
No,
the
He's
Klingon
the
culture
Boy
that he
Scout of Boy
idolized?
Scouts.
rogue is your fish out of water. He's a Klingon raised by humans. He loves his human family, loves his human parents, but also loves his home planet. I mean, that I don't see rogue in that. I do see
And his
Try
whole
hard.
life, his whole life, he sacrifices for his culture. He's for the Klingon culture.
yeah.
His whole life, whenever he has an opportunity to turn one way or the other, he turns towards the Klingons. So I'm with Ginny on that one too.
No, I think in Picard he's becoming roguish, though.
In his old age.
in his old
Yeah.
age.
He's doing a 7 of 9 and going through a rogue phase.
I think so. I mean, I love the thing about the quoting Shakespeare and having the tea and get
Yeah.
ready for bed. That was
That's
fun.
and a
But
bit of a
he's
pacifist
doing
bent.
kind of like a Section 31 kind of thing now. And
He's an independent contractor
yes, but I mean, he's
for Starfleet
really,
security.
I think he's becoming somewhat roguish. I think, yes, I agree with you for earlier incarnations of him, especially in DS9 and in the Next Generation. But in Picard, he seems to be kind of turning on his head. Maybe he's seen too much or been around the planet and doesn't give a whatever. Gonna say the
I
word.
used it.
I'm gonna agree with Wendy on this because he
he's
has a
really
moment about
striking me as
pacifism.
quite roguish lately.
Yeah, he talks about embracing pacifism. So yeah, I think you're right, Wendy.
He finally does become a merry man. But all right, well, before they beam us out of here, let's make sure everybody knows where to find you guys. Website, social media, all the good stuff. So Wendy, you're up first.
Hello, everybody. My name is Wendy Van Camp. You can find me via my website, which is wendyvancamp.com. I'm on Instagram as No Wasted Ink, and I have a monthly newsletter that is free. You can get it on Substack. I'm sorry, nowastedink.substack.com. And the newsletter has writing tip essays, ramble from myself, and I list all my appearances and podcasts and whatnot that I'm doing for that month. And it has a voiceover. So if you're not tired of hearing my voice here, you can listen to me on my newsletter too.
Rachel.
Well, you can find me at my website, rachelecarr.com. It has to be that because Rachel Carr wrote vegan cookbooks. That is not me. If you want to find me on social media, all my handles are Total Recar. And yes, if you get my handle, you will get the humor in my books.
Yeah, but I hear the other Rachel Carr makes a hell of a great vegan burrito. So,
She
Jenny.
does.
GiniKoch.com. I'm all over Facebook. And if you go to my fan page, Hairspray and Rock and Roll, you can sign up for my free newsletter. Hook me up. I'm also on X, Twitter, Blue Sky, and Pinterest. It looks like I'm on Instagram, but I'm still really not. I have a release this month, the re-release of my romantic suspense novel set in and around New Orleans, came out from Ginger Blue Publishing, called Plush Life. And I have my first full straight mystery co-written with Phoebe Bayless coming out also from Ginger Blue in March called Falls Girl.
Kristin?
I guess you could find me on Facebook, on Twitter, X as Anycat at ANICAT, and Instagram as Anycat68. That's about it. I'm nowhere.
David?
Just Google David R. Slayton. Just don't forget the R. There's some Florida man types out there. So if you start looking for David Slayton, you might find someone else. But just davidarslayton.com. All my social media handles are right there on the homepage, as well as my links and links to all my books.
And you can find me at jamespnettles.com, authoressentialsworkshops.com, creatingpros.com, and of course, here at ConTinual. And we will see you guys again soon, unless I get called.